What's up, everybody? Sorry, the stream got moved. Apparently, I'm an old man and taking a heavy trash can out uh, made my back really sore. I came in from the shop, went to sit down in my chair, and yeah, I was like this, and I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna be able to do this stream. So I ended up just taking some ibuprofen and laying down. So I appreciate everybody joining us today. If you guys are new to these streams, we do these typically every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central Time. And, sorry, we do this every Wednesday at 4 p.m. Central Time, and you can ask us questions about your 3D printer. We specialize here in FDM printers, so no resin stuff, just strictly the ones that look like they print with Weed Whacker line. So anyways, and I do have a question for you guys, because I'm looking for some recommendations. Now, I got a buddy who's going to do some welding for me later tonight, because I found out there was a large crack on one of the braces for my lawnmower deck, and he's way more experienced in welding than I am. But I would like to have a basic welder here, and you know, I was looking at MIG welders. Not gonna do TIG just because it's really expensive. Basically something to have on hand so I can do repairs on metal should I need it. You know, like basically the bracket it's cracked. It looked like the previous owner had hit something hard with the deck, because I bought the mower used. But a new deck is like $700, so, and it can easily be welded. I just don't have the tool. So I'm wondering if anybody has an experience with that. If, you know, I've seen some people say, well, the flux core ones, they're not worth it. They're not the best. I know they're not the best, but for average hobbyist homeowner use, you know, using like maybe 2-3 times a year. If you guys have any recommendations, let me know. Obviously, you know, basically looking to spend about $500 or less on just a basic welder. To do welding with steel up to like 1/4 inch would be the most. So if you guys have any suggestions, let me know. Post them in the chat. I'll be looking out. So I know we got a lot of makers here, and I know there's makers of many kinds, woodworking, metalworking, printers. So there's a lot of crossover. So it'll be fun. So anyways, I'm trying to think if I have any updates. Oh yeah, I have the Ender 7 here. We just released the LCD kit for that. I believe it was last week. I think it hasn't been out for a week yet. I think it's been like half a week. Maybe it was. It's all kind of a blur. I think I launched it last weekend, but the LCD kits are out. So if you guys are looking to actually use your Ender 7 with our unified firmware and get rid of the touchscreen and have a lot more control, since Creality does not have the source code released for the Ender 7 as well as I'm aware. They still haven't sent it to me, and they told me that what's it called? They told me that they don't know when it's going to come out. But if you want control over your printer, we do have LCD kits just like we do with a lot of the other Creality machines. And it's literally sitting right here. I'm very happy with it. What I'm going to do is on my machine, I'm going to put our Easy ABL in there. I'm going to solid mount the bed. And I think I'm going to change out some of the fans, because if you guys remember, like I think I have maybe 5 hours of print time on this, and already fans are grinding. Like, I'm not even joking. Like, this printer's basically brand new, and the bearings are already going out on some of the fans. So, yay, Creality crap quality. But where I'm going with this is, would you guys be interested in seeing just having like a casual hangout stream where I'll just, you know, kind of hang out with you guys and chit chat, where I'll put the Easy ABL on there. I'll probably throw some of our Easy Neos on there for some lighting, because I believe that board should work. There are a couple extra input output pins, so I should be able to use those. And those of you guys that are looking at putting the Easy ABL on the Ender 7, because of how the hot end mount is, you will have to use the Easy ABL Micro, which there is information on the LCD product page telling you that, hey, if you're putting an Easy ABL on your Ender 7, you have to go with our smaller micro sensor. And this actually mounts to the right on the hot end, on the rear, with the 2 screws. So this screw is actually for an existing hole that's already on there, and this one is for the shroud screw. So you take it out, put it in, this snaps in the back, and it tucks in the corner. So we also are going to be having a Halloween stream where you guys can submit entries, and we're going to vote on whose is the best print. So if you guys want to get in on that, we are having our Halloween stream giveaway, and I believe that is I'm trying to type Halloween. That is going to be October 31st. That'll be Monday, and we're going to choose 3 winners. First place is $100. And these are all gift cards for our shop. So $100 is first place, $50 second place, and third place is $25. So if you guys want to get in on that, all you got to do is send us some awesome spooky prints. And I'll just show you here. So if you go to th3dstudio.com/Halloween, it'll take you here to this page. You can put your name, your email, and you can upload your photos here. And if there's anything else you want to add to the submission, you can go ahead and do that. So we will be cutting off entries on Friday, October 28th at midnight. So get your entries in then. And this is open to everybody. So give me one sec. God, throw my back out, and now I'm what is it, heartburn? Where you get like I had Subway, and I guess I shouldn't have had the banana peppers. So give me one sec. Oh man, I'm only 33. I feel way older than that these days. All right, so yeah, if you guys are looking for questions to be answered, all you gotta do is type !Q in front of your question, just like it says right above my head, and then the bot will pick it up and it will reply. So I'm just looking here, what people are saying. The welders, they're saying Hobart and Lincoln are great. I think my dad has a Lincoln welder. He has a MIG welder, and I know he uses gas for the what's the term for it? It prevents it like shields the shielding gas. I think that's it. But ideally, I'd like to get something I don't have to fill gas up with. I don't care if it's the cleanest weld. I'm more looking for utility, if that makes sense, which is why I was looking at the flux ones. So, yeah, and our giveaway is open. All right. Let's see. So let's see what questions we have here. And it looks like Tor snuck the first questions in, and I actually did see this. He was asking about what are my thoughts on the Plasmix, I know, Trident inductive heater hot end. It's on Kickstarter. So one, I will never do Kickstarters. I've been burned too many times with Kickstarters or crowdfunding in general. And, you know, you guys got to realize that in general, no matter what it is, whether it's a 3D printing product or another, these companies have no obligation to actually deliver on the product. So you could potentially just be giving a company money and never seeing again. So if you're okay with that, then go for it. But me personally, I don't like doing crowdfunding. You know, we don't do crowdfunding for our stuff. My whole thing is, you know, if I believe in a product, I'm going to put my own money behind it. I'm not going to take my customers' money to try to fund my projects. Like I don't even like doing pre-orders. The only time we've done pre-orders on stuff is when we already have it on the way and people are itching for it, meaning the product's done, it's tested, it's ready for launch, and we've already paid to have them start being manufactured. So I'm not a big fan of Kickstarters. But the interesting thing is, I do think it's an interesting concept. The thing is, I'm trying to pull it up here. So I'll just do a screen share here. So I'm not affiliated with anybody from this company. If anybody happens to be watching, I'd be more than willing to take a look at it after it's out of Kickstarter. Because here's the thing: you can make a lot of claims, but when it comes to actually delivering on the product, that's what I'm concerned about. I've seen way too many, especially 3D printing companies, where they do like fancy renders and, you know, they make like 1 or 2 prototypes that work well, and then no one hears from them for years. There's been a lot of companies that have taken a lot of people's money in the community and never delivered on a product. So, yeah, so basically the idea is you have the steel nozzle here, and they're using induction heating, which is not a new technology. This has been around for decades, and they're just put on the nozzle. So the benefit is this basically uses electricity to create like a strong magnetic field here, and that magnetic field then heats up the steel. So it's not actually using it's not a resistance heater, it's an induction heater. So it should theoretically, depending on how much the power draws, work on most printers, even their stock control boards. Obviously, you'll probably have to run a PID tune. I'd be really curious to see if it lives up to their claims here, because they've got all these different temperature graphs. I've already looked at these. You know, and they're claiming in 8 seconds it'll hit 260 C. You know, I'd be really curious to see what the power draw is on that, because the thing is, like, if you're going over like 50, 60 watts, like 50 is usually the most wattage most control boards, especially stock ones, can handle. Anything above that, you're probably going to have to be dropping in an external MOSFET. And the thing is too, let's say this thing's pulling like a 100-watt load, you could achieve super fast heat up times by just putting a 100-watt resistive heater into an existing hot end. So it's kind of like, how much power does this draw? Because if you're comparing this, like an E3D V6 uses a 30-watt heater cartridge stock. The Mosquito uses, I think it's a 40 or 50, and I think the Rapido uses a 50. I don't think I see anything on here, but basically it's not like they're lying, but it's like you could achieve basically the same quick heat up times if you just pump more heat into an existing hot end. That's the thing. So, yeah, I don't know if I'm making sense here. Do you guys get what I'm saying? So like, they're not showing here how much current this sucker draws. I don't know if like there's a link to the Kickstarter. Is this it? And they're out of Austria, so they're not a US company. I haven't done business with anybody in Austria. Yeah, usually foreign companies plus Kickstarter, I won't even try to back them. I hate Kickstarters. I'm trying to see here if they have any specs on how much power this thing pulls. Because, like I said, it's really easy. It's really easy to heat up quickly if you're just dumping a ton of heat into the hot end. Which you can do with a resistive heater as well. I'm just looking here. I'm not seeing anything. Not seeing anything so far. Okay, this is weird. So you can't use it with a traditional control board. You have to be running a Raspberry Pi and Clipper, and it uses USB to communicate. Okay, here. Needs a 24-volt power supply to power regular induction nozzle. So it's around 50 watts of continuous draw. So definitely is a little more efficient then. So that's what I was curious to see. So 50 watt, that is impressive. But you're now having to run Clipper just to run a hot end. And you have a separate control board just to run a hot end. I don't know. I feel like you should be able to. I don't know how the induction heating works. I'm assuming it's got to modulate it at a high frequency. I'd be surprised if you couldn't achieve that with an existing control board and software tweaks. You know what I mean? But I'm not familiar with induction heaters in general. So, but yeah, what are they asking for one hot end? And this is obviously on the Kickstarter. So, holy shit. It's 319 euros. This makes the Slice Engineering hot end look really, really affordable. Wow. Yeah. I'm not that impatient to part with $320 and have to run a separate control board. It's neat, don't get me wrong, but in my opinion, that's way too much money for what it does. You can't wait, 20, 30 seconds for your hot end to heat up. I mean, hell, the, what was it? The E3D Revo, that heats up very fast too, and that uses a standard one. It's interesting. So, anyways, let's move on to the next question here. Jonathan Barnes says he's got to enter through the 427 board. One of my printers printing now and then it get beeps and goes from the main screen to menu on its own. You have a grounding issue, and we actually have so if you can try to resolve it on your own if you've already checked to make sure your printer's properly grounded and all your electrical connections are proper. The sad thing is your board's just picking up interference. It's very common on the SKR E3 mini boards because they don't have any filtering on those pins. It's also common on the Corality 422 and the 427 boards. But we have a little board that you plug into the back of your LCD, and it will add additional pull-ups onto the onto those pins so it doesn't press it over and over, and it's $9 in our shop. We have that right here, so you just plug this on. There's even a video here that a customer had sent us. This is typically what the issue looks like, is it's just clicking the encoder over and over. Sometimes it'll do it like this, sometimes it'll do it every now and then. Either way, it's annoying. This is a well-known issue with especially the Big Tree Tech boards. It's rarer on the Creality boards, but it still does happen on them. So basically, you just literally plug that on to the back of your LCD just like this. There's no firmware changes. There's nothing. Now, I know there are, based on looking at the pull requests from Marlin and the new releases, it looks like they added a... I'm going to put a link in here. I can't type and talk at the same time. It looks like they added like a software filter. I haven't tested that out. I don't think I have any printers that do that. But basically, if you've gone through and made sure your ground, you have continuity from your ground pin on your power supply cable, like the one that goes in the wall. I don't have any cables handy, do I? So basically, if your ground pin, so if you're on a US plug, it's this guy. If you don't have continuity from this to the chassis of your printer, that usually indicates that your power supply has a bad ground, and you want to open that up and check it. It's very common on the cheap power supplies that come with the printers, whether it's basically if you have a mean wheel, you probably have good ground because they actually test that stuff. Whereas on Creality's printers, power supplies, and you know, other no-name ones, grounding is rarely ever properly done on them. Like we've had more printers where we've opened them up, tested ground, and their ground is terrible, versus ones that have not. So, but on the Ender 3, yeah, check your ground. If your ground is good and you're still having the issue, that pull-up board will fix it. I am going to test out that new feature in Marlin 2.1 once we update our code, but the only thing is, if you have like where it's acts like it's rotating the knob, you can't really filter that because in order to take multiple samples, that signal has to be continuously pressed. So on the LCD where you push the button, that's easy. It might be like a slightly longer button push to confirm that it actually pulled high or pulled low and then went back high. But on the rotating like of the knobs, if you're also having issues with that where it's just not registering or your feed rate's going up automatically or it's scrolling through the menus, that's not really going to fix it. It's mainly just on the button press. Whereas that pull-up board that I linked below, that puts extra pull-ups on the encoder press, so you pressing the button and the rotation left and right of the knob. So that'll just fix it at the hardware level. You don't have to use janky software hacks. So the bottom line is the reason that happens is because the board isn't properly designed to deal with extra interference that these I/O pins are experiencing. And so basically the printer thinks, because there's so much interference, that the button's being pressed. So basically there's so much noise on the line, so the signal being nice and even, so it should be at a 3.3 volt, it's going like this, and every time it goes down, because there's so much noise, it thinks you press the button. So that board fixes at the hardware level. So you can use our firmware, whatever firmware, it will fix the problem if that is what yours is doing. So look at the video. So basically, if it's clicking over and over again, that's the most common way it manifests itself. That board will fix it. And if your feed rate's just changing itself on its own, or you're scrolling through the menus on its own, that will also fix that as well. And we have that circuitry built into our Easy boards. So our Easy board, original one, the V1, I think we added on the V1.1. We discovered it on the V1 that some of the printers need that, namely the Ender 5s. We didn't see any on any Ender 3s, but the Ender 5s are very noisy printers for some reason. Probably because they're using the knockoff PSUs in those as well. But the EasyBoard Lite V1.1 and higher came with that circuitry added onto the board, and our V2 has always had that circuitry onto the board because we, try to test things, and if we see stuff like that, even though it's not technically our board's fault, it's not Creality's board's fault, the thing is you've got to design for the machines you're going into, and these are pretty noisy printers in terms of electrical interference, especially if they don't have a quality power supply in them, which most of them don't. So, BW Electronics, you said you... Try to make sense. This is written weird. You told about upgrading my Ender 3v2 hot end fans. As hot end fan is failing now. He's looking to upgrade it to a better one. Would I have to print a new cover for it to fit? Can you tell me, fan again, where to get the STL? So we carry fans for the Ender 3 V2 hot end. Now, if you're talking about the hot end cooling fan, the one that's on all the time that blows at your heatsink, we carry 40 millimeter 24 volt fans, and those are properly spec'd to cool the Creality hot ends. I'll post a link to that in there. If you're talking about the layer fan, the one that actually cools the plastic, the one that you can control, we also carry those as well. And if I'm like staring at my screen, you hear me typing, you might not be able to because of all the noise filtering, but I can't type and talk at the same time, so I apologize. So I was silent for a second in the middle of answering a question. That is why. So BW, that would be the fan I just linked will be for the control box. If yours is going out, I'd recommend if your hot end fan's going out because they're the same one, just replace them both at the same time, because especially on the Ender 3 V2, that 422 board runs very hot, and even with the stock cooling fan, they tend to overheat and you lose steps. So if you're doing it again and you're ordering stuff anyways, I would just get 2 of those, one for your hot end fan and one for the control board. The Ender 7, I'm going to be putting those same fans I just linked in the Ender 7 because they're already going out on the ones that are on this printer, and it's only a couple months old, but it has like 5 hours of print time on it. If you are talking about the layer fan, here's a link to the layer fan as well. And our layer fans, even though I prefer the 5015s, if I'm going to upgrade my hot end setup, meaning I'm changing it to a different printed mount or like our multi-mount, I like going with the 5015 fans. But if you're wanting to retain the stock cooling setup, which works all right, it's not terrible, it's not great, it just works. That 4010 ball bearing fan that I linked in the bottom, that's going to be a little bit more airflow than the stock fan. And it's also ball bearings, so it's not the crappy sleeve bearing, so it should last you a long time. And then the one I linked for the 40mm, that is a sealed sleeve bearing, which means crap can't get into it. So Creality and all these other companies, to cut costs, they use sleeve bearing fans that aren't sealed. So crap gets into them, dust, hair, whatever, and it basically tears the bearing up, and they just don't last as long because crap can get into them. They're just lower quality. All right, so hopefully that answers your question. If I interpreted that wrong, let me know. And that was BW's Electronics. So Printing Rice says, any tips for hiding a Z-seam? Any wire suggestions? Looking for to rewire my Saber 10S. So hiding the Z-seam, I will usually put it in my slicer, so I still use Simplify 3D. You can specify the point on the Y-axis where you want to put it. I'll usually put in the back left corner of the part, and I will align it. So if I would rather have my Z-seam aligned on the back of the print, instead of having my Z-seam starting wherever the nozzle's closest. It does increase the print time a little bit, but I would rather have them all aligned on a part of the print that I'm not going to see. So if I'm printing something that I'm going to be looking head on, or if it's in a corner, I find they're less noticeable if they're on a corner of a print, especially if you have like a geometric shape that's rectangular or square. I usually like to hide in the back left corner. So as for wire, it depends on what you're rewiring. If you're rewiring your bed, you're going to need a high watt iron to replace bed wires. So in general on these printers, because the bed is a giant heatsink, I found in terms of a iron that is just used for the beds, Weller makes a nice 100-watt one. They're about $50 to $60 when I bought them, but we have one in our shop and it's only used for soldering beds. And that's cheap because the only other one I have here that will actually do beds is my Hako one, which is sitting on my desk, and that's a $400 direct heat iron. That will do beds with the chisel tip, but that's almost a $400 iron. So for out in the shop, since we just need to have it on hand to replace beds, like maybe the wire snapped off just from the repetitive motion, or they frayed, or we just need to replace them, a nice big chisel tip Weller, like we use for like soldering plumbing, or my dad uses them for stained glass work. Those are really good for soldering beds. You need at least 100 watts of heat, I found, to actually solder a bed wire. In that case, if you're changing the bed wire, silicone wire all the way for your bed wires. Everything else you can use just standard wire, but make sure whatever wire you get is stranded. Do not use solid core wire when you're rewiring your printers. Make sure you get stranded wire, and avoid wire, especially for stuff for motors, for thermistors, for anything carrying current. Do not use copper clad aluminum wire. So a lot of the cheaper wire, especially on Amazon, is terrible for this. I try not to buy wire on Amazon or even eBay because a lot of the sellers, you'll be like, man, this is a good price. And you look, it's half the price of other rolls. It's because it's copper clad aluminum. Copper clad aluminum is not actually copper wire. It's aluminum wire with a copper coating on it, and it has more resistance, which means it's not going to carry the current as well. If any of you guys have done networking jobs, you guys will know when you pull cable, if the client cheaps out and you do copper clad aluminum, especially if you're running PoE, the signals just don't work well. The PoE doesn't work well. So in general, stay away from copper clad aluminum wire. But in general, on the bed, I always use silicone wire, and then in general on all the wiring, stick with stranded wire and make sure you're getting actual copper wire. It doesn't need to be oxygen-free copper. It just needs to not be copper-clad aluminum, which is abbreviated commonly as CCA on the product listing. So, and a lot of the times, if it is CCA wire, a lot of the Chinese sellers will not put that it's CCA, but if it is actually copper wire, they will usually put in the description that it's copper wire because that's a selling point. Namer Griff is asking, he says he missed the board repair streams. I don't do them anymore because we can't really get the parts to do them, and they're honestly a waste of my time at this point with everything else going on. We don't do the board repairs. The only thing we've done, and we still do because it doesn't take me that long to do them and I can get the parts, is like replacing SDs. Like the SD slots, if you break your SD slot or it wears out, that's the only kind of board repairs we do. But like processors, we don't do those anymore because I can't get them most of the time, or they're really prohibitively expensive. MOSFETs, I don't do any of that. It's just not worth my time. But the SD slots, I can bang on an SD slot in like 10 minutes. So it's worth our time. And I can get them, the slots themselves, and I have a ton of them. So, Mir's asking, he's got a monoprice Mini V1. Sometimes I have to push the control knob multiple times. I think the rotary controller is going bad. Are rotary controllers mostly the same? Can I replace myself? In general, yes. In general, yes. I'm sure there's outliers there, but basically just try to find something, take measurements of the spacing of the pins, where your pins are, how it anchors to the board, and try to find something similar. But in general, most of the rotary encoders are the same. They're usually 5 pins, and then they have a couple anchor points. So just get something that looks physically the same. Check the dimensions, guess what you have. And worst case scenario, maybe you'll have to reverse the direction the encoder goes. I don't know if you can do that on that printer because I think that's the one with the little color screen. Those have been out for a while. But you could modify the direction of the encoder hardware-wise by flipping the 2 pins. You would have to like pull them out from the board and jump the wires. But yeah, in general, they're typically a direct replacement. There's just variations in size. But try to find something that looks the same, as the same physical dimensions, and usually you'll be fine. All right, hang on. Damn heartburn. I should have took some Tums before I started. Sinister Gaming says, is there any way to reset my EZABL? I no longer have a red light on the probe. I'm assuming you mean when it's detected. If you have a 18mm sensor, which most people do, you'll have a green light if the power's on. If you don't have a red light on there, then you're going to want to turn the adjustment screw clockwise, which will increase the sensitivity. It's also possible, depending on how old it is, everything's going to die at some point, so it could be possible that the sensor just went out. If you are out of warranty, well, if you're in warranty, let us know and we'll replace it after we go through troubleshooting. If you're out of warranty, we do have out of warranty replacements, so like discounted replacements for just sensors and whatnot. But contact our team. They'll be able to give you some troubleshooting steps. Julio Reyes says, I'm installing a Mosquito Magnum with a new hot end shroud with your EZABL and firmware. Will I need new sensor offsets, or will your new Ender 7 firmware offsets work? I'm going to assume it probably is going to need new offsets. If you're using, well, even if you're using our mount and mounting it to the same physical location, your hot end is probably going to be in a different physical location. You should probably just measure it. If you're doing a custom setup like you are, definitely just measure your offsets and use the custom probe settings. So the firmware does support a custom probe option. Let's see. Michael Curry says, Pies are difficult to get right now. He's tried the Octoprint install for Android Octo 4a. So that's been out for a long time. I'm not a big fan of it because basically you're going to be killing your phone, and the batteries, if you just leave your phone on the charger or just a crappy phone, the batteries are going to puff up and swell and potentially burst. I've had this happen on me. It's janky. If you want my honest opinion, it's janky. Yes, it works, but I would not rely on it for production. We are testing the MKS Pi boards. MKS makes their own Pi board, and we're looking at being able to make our own Easy Pi kit based around those MKS Pis as a full kit. We're in testing right now. We have Octoprint running on it, so I'm hoping, because we can actually get those boards, their speed is actually really good, so they're as fast as the Pi 4s in our testing. And then basically what we'll be doing is making our own image to have Octoprint on there, and that will we will not be putting that image out for anybody but our customers, just because obviously I don't want our competitors to be taking advantage of all the work we've done to get it running on there correctly. But we are working on an alternative because basically Pi boards, I can't find them. I can't even get them. I don't know what the hell the deal is with why we're still having shortages. We've been hearing the same damn excuse for what, 2 years now? Like, come on. there's not, I'm sure there's still high demand, but there's got to be lower demand because basically people don't have a lot of disposable income at this point. So the demand should be dropping off just for the fact that because the economy's in the shitter right now, that people aren't wasting money on stuff like that, because this kind of stuff is like disposable income type purchases, for the most part. They're non-essential. But yeah, I don't know why we still can't get Pi boards. I can't get them. I've emailed all of our contacts we have. I got multiple different vendors that are authorized resellers, and basically they're saying we're not going to have any until at least the middle of next year, which sucks. So, but it is what it is. Nardo says, I've got the F4 Ender board. I'm assuming you mean the Ender 3 S1. I've opted to recompile Marlin to enable linear advance over unified bed leveling. I'm manually adding a large mesh. Am I missing out on UBL? I don't use UBL. I found it to be very unnecessarily complicated. And here's the sad part. You're not going to be able to run linear advance on that board. The drivers will shut down. So there are, on the newer Marlin 2.1, I saw some changes. I haven't tested it, but they're saying that they might have gotten it working, or they have gotten it working. There's been progress with you running linear advance on standalone Trinamic drivers, but those Enders 3 S1 boards have Trinamic drivers, and they're in standalone mode. So like if you use our firmware, it definitely will cause a panic. Like it'll work for a little while, and basically the drivers just freak out and shut down. I haven't tested that. We will be testing it once we update to Marlin 2.1, but I'm not going to hold my breath because I was told that that was basically a hardware issue unless they found some weird workaround on software to do it. All right. EJ says, is it harmful to put the FR4 sheet from the bottom of the meanwhile power supply under the power supply and into the casing, replacing the power supply in Ender 2 Pro? Is it just unnecessary? I think it's unnecessary because the Ender 2 Pro already has a insulator. They already have a plastic one. If you can fit it in there, I haven't checked to see if it fit. I'm not using it with mine. I'm using the stock insulator, the plastic one, as shown in the video, so that that printer that we did the video on, that's actually Krista's printer, and she's been using it like that just fine. Basically, if you can fit it in there, it's not going to hurt anything as long as it's not physically interfering with anything, but I don't think it's necessary. It did just fine with the stock power supply board. The Meanwell is going to be no different, except the Meanwell is actually going to work. So Cleo Reyes is asking, I'm looking to rewire Ender 5 Plus to extend the wires for a cleaner look. If you want connectors, we actually carry those now. We have JST SM locking connectors, which are good for making disconnectable cables, and we also have JST XH kits. So if you don't have those, check them out. We also carry the crimp tools. He's asking, will 22 gauge work for all? Is there a point where it's too long to get signal loss? So 22 gauge, it depends on what you're doing. For thermistors, for fans even, lighting, neopixels, like thicker gauge wire, like 20 gauge or higher. Motors, depending on how long you're going, I mean, there is such thing as too long. And with any wire, the longer you go, the more resistance is going to be there from the wire itself. It's just how it is. And too much resistance could lead to, like, the motor's not running correctly because there's too much voltage drop on a long run. Basically, you want to make the wires as short as possible while retaining the function. But, like if you're going 15 feet, that's probably going to be too long for a lot of stuff. You're going to get too much interference. You're going to get too much voltage drop. And you'd have to go up. For like your hot end heater, I would go a minimum of 18 gauge. 18 gauge is typically what most printers use for the hot end heater. For your bed, you're going to want to, if you're replacing all the wiring, I would just go 12 gauge silicone on the bed because that bed pulls a lot of current. The stock wire is 14, and even that gets warm. I am still running the stock wire on mine, but if it ever fails, I'm going to be just replacing it with 12 gauge silicone. But yeah, basically the shorter the better in general with any cabling. because especially for power and motor signals, the longer wire you run, the more voltage drops off, which then can lead to other issues where, you know, like you're having to turn the VREF up on your motor a little bit more to compensate for the voltage drop, you know, or if you don't change it, you're probably getting step loss and you're wondering like, it was fine before, but now it's the same settings. I just changed the wires. What's the difference? Well, the wires can choke it out. The workaround is if you are going longer, go up a gauge, and that will make the resistance across that wire less, which means less voltage drop, less potential issues. So if you guys got any more questions, we got like about 15 more minutes left on the stream. And then I'm going to wrap this up. I got one more question here, and it's a quick one because I do not have any experience with Maker Gear. Robert A is asking, do you have any experience with Maker Gear? I believe Maker Gear, didn't they go out of business recently? Are you asking because somebody's clearing out some Maker Gear printers? Or am I thinking of something else? I'm going to their site. No, it's Maker Gear. I thought they were going out of business. Their website's still up. I thought that they were going out of business, or did they change their mind? Am I going crazy here? I swear to God, I thought I remember reading a press release that they were going out of business. I'm not crazy, right? I thought I heard that they were going out of business, but it doesn't look like they are based on their website. Like their website is still up. Oh, they're just scaling. So this is interesting. We're forced to scale back operations. All sales are final. I thought oh, if you're interested in acquiring Maker Gear. Yeah, I thought I remember reading that they were going out of business. I personally probably wouldn't buy any of them, considering a lot of their stuff is custom made, and basically, you're going to be stuck trying to get parts for a printer that they custom made, and you can't if they're out of business. Sorry. All right, yeah, I probably wouldn't mess with them unless you can get it for like, I don't know, like let's say you get one for $200 and you want something to tinker with, maybe. But it seems like they're not doing so hot right now. Paul Texan just to put a question in. I got time for probably about 2 or 3 more questions. Then we're gonna bring. I think Chris is playing with Remo outside. Yeah, he is. She's playing with him outside. Paul Texan says, is it worth it to go to ASA instead of ABS? I'm building my first enclosed printer. So ASA and ABS, in my experience, have printed basically the same. We print a lot of ABS here. The main difference between ABS and ASA, as far as I'm aware, someone correct me if I'm wrong, but the main selling point of ASA over ABS is ASA is supposed to be more UV resistant. So if you're putting it outside where it's going to be in the sun, that's preferable. But ABS is still able to be used outside, and we print a lot of ABS. I'm a big fan of it. It's a very, it's a very refined material because it's been out for so long. You just need to have a good enclosure. The other thing, which is actually kind of funny, is like we've actually had to kick our heaters up here in my office and the shop because the power saving eco bullshit that is on the EcoBees was putting the temperature way too low because no one was in the building. But the problem is the printers are running, and as the ambient temperature in the room drops, the temperature in the enclosures drop, and we were getting splitting on some of the prints. So we literally are having to heat the building more than we normally would have to, just to keep our prints from failing, basically. Even with insulated enclosures, like we found that if you dip below 68 degrees ambient temperature, you're going to have more warping. Even in an enclosure, you're going to have splitting and poor layer adhesion. So, yay, more not electricity, but more gas costs to heat the print farm. So our prints actually come out. So ABS is nice, but it's expensive to print. Any VOCs from ASA, I don't get involved with that crap. If you're worried about like nanoparticles and stuff, pick up an air filter. We have actually 2 air filters in the shop just because I wanted to kind of have something there in case someone was sensitive to it, but I've been around it a lot. I do have a filter in my office mainly for allergies, and because we have pets. But you know, just pick up a filter that'll go down to 0.1 microns is what people have told me. I've seen all these fear-mongering articles like, oh my god, PLA has nanoparticles and all this stuff. It's like, if you're not worried about it, stick it out in your garage and don't be around it when it's printing. Otherwise, stop making clickbaity articles. So, but I think that's all the questions. Printing Race asking about the Octolus plugin. Don't do it. It'll mess your prints up. Like, seriously, Octolus or similar plugins, it moves your print head. It pauses the print, moves the print head, takes a picture, and then moves it back. So, and your print head's heated. So basically, it's making your nozzle ooze just to take a damn picture and coming back. They look pretty. It's gonna kill your print quality, and make it take longer. So if you don't care about that, go ahead. I've played with them multiple times, and every single time I've had issues. It's just not worth it in my opinion. But you do you. It's your printer. But yeah, Krista, where's my pulper? I'm gonna give Remo a dingo stick. Well, I say dingo stick. We're gonna give him some of his chicken jerky, and then we're gonna wrap this up. Remo, do you want a dingo stick? He's like, hell yeah. We just call them dingo sticks because it's a treat. Can we sit? Can we sit? Can we sit? Can we speak? Can we speak? Oof. Good boy. And we also have a new guest here who arrived early. I miscalculated and thought he was going to be here later, but we have this little 8-week-old baby here. We got a new friend for Remo, and they've actually been playing. It's adorable because he's so tiny. But this is Comet. He's going to be part of, or not going to be, he is. He's our new family member, and he wants to get down and play. He's like, let me down, father. Father.
Give him a piece of jerky.
Father. I don't think he can have the jerky. He's too young. Look at him. So yeah, Remo has a new buddy, and he'll be around too. And then yeah, we got a German Shepherd now and a Golden Retriever. So we wanted something a little more laid back than a German Shepherd, and I think this will fit the bill. What do you guys think? Look at him. You know, you're all like cuddly and not fighting me being held 99% of the time, and then the one time I want to show you off, you're being feisty. Huh? What do you have to say for yourself, buddy? Look at them. They were playing outside. So anyways, we'll have another doggo on the streams going forward. So I appreciate you guys. I hope you guys learned something. And as always, happy printing. We'll see you guys later. Bye-bye now. Can you say bye? No, you're a dog. I'll talk to you guys later. Have a good one.